This video is brought to you by Nebula. On Tuesday, Portugal was plunged into a brand new political crisis, with Portuguese prosecutors raiding the official residence of the Prime Minister, António Costa, and detaining his Chief of Staff. Costa was then announced as being under criminal investigation by the Supreme Court of Justice, forcing him to resign just hours later. At the time of writing, it's unclear how Portugal's president is going to react, but the fact that the Portuguese equivalent of the Privy Council is being convened suggests that snap elections could be on the way. So in this video, we'll have a look at Portugal's long-running political crisis, what just happened, and what might happen next. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. First things first, let's start with a rundown of what's happened. On Tuesday, prosecutors from Portugal's Public Prosecution Service conducted a swathe of raids across the country, including 17 home addresses, a number of government departments, and the offices of the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. At the time of writing, 5 people remain in police detention, including the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff and one of the Prime Minister's best friends, and at least a further 2 people are under formal investigation: the Minister of Infrastructure, João Galamba, and the Prime Minister, António Costa. The raids and arrests form part of a long-running investigation by Portuguese authorities into alleged corruption surrounding lithium exploration and hydrogen projects, particularly in the north of the country. Potential crimes under investigation include active and passive corruption of office holders and political influence peddling. While these projects might sound boring, they're actually quite important, not just for Portugal, but for the wider European Union. The EU is betting big on renewables, with the projects under scrutiny having had millions upon millions of euros in EU innovation funding ploughed into them. Any irregularities with the spending of that money would therefore not simply be an internal domestic issue, but an international one too. Announcing his resignation on Tuesday afternoon, Costa denied having done anything illegal, stressing that he had a clear conscience and complete trust in justice, but that the duties of Prime Minister are not compatible with any suspicion about his integrity. Costa added that he would not stand to be Prime Minister again, saying, "It's a phase of my life that's over." Costa's resignation marks yet another step on the spectacular fall from grace he and his government have experienced since winning an absolute majority last year, which allowed him to form something exceedingly rare in Portugal's nascent democracy: a single-party majority government. In his victory speech at the time, Costa claimed that the Portuguese people had shown a red card to any type of political crisis and promised, quote, "stability, certainty and security." Aware of the rarity of the situation he found himself in, Costa further stressed that an absolute majority doesn't mean absolute power. It means to govern with and for all Portuguese. As we've covered before on the channel, very quickly thereafter, issues started to arise. The first issue involving the state-owned airline TAP Air Portugal. That scandal, dubbed Tapgate, saw a TAP director leave the company with a huge €500,000 payoff, before that very same director was appointed by the government to run the state air traffic control operator, and then appointed as a junior minister within the Treasury. Several people, including TAP's CEO and the responsible government minister, either then resigned or were sacked. A few weeks after that, another scandal arose whilst they were trying to tidy up the fallout from the first. Galambagate, involving João Galamba, yes, the very same João Galamba under investigation at the moment. A parliamentary inquiry was launched into the political oversight and guardianship of the state airline, which required witnesses, including TAP's CEO, to give evidence. A Portuguese broadcaster at the time alleged that Galamba, the new Minister for Infrastructure, had proposed briefing TAP's CEO on what to say at the inquiry, prompting accusations of witness tampering. Galamba's deputy, who allegedly arranged the briefing, was then also sacked, and he responded by having an almighty tantrum in the government department, culminating in the alleged theft of a state-owned laptop. This then led to the Portuguese intelligence service intervening to retrieve the laptop, and questions were asked as to whether the move was ordered by the Prime Minister. Galamba did then try to resign, for the sake of the necessary institutional tranquility, but his resignation was rejected by Costa, creating a constitutional crisis that visibly frustrated the Portuguese president, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. Anyway, the recent raids seem to be related to this ongoing investigation. At the time of writing, it's not exactly clear what will happen next. Rebelo de Sousa has broadly two options: dissolve parliament and call new elections, or appoint a new Prime Minister from the Socialists. Currently, new elections look more likely. At Rebelo de Sousa's request, party leaders and the Council of State are convening today, and the Portuguese constitution requires that the Council of State meet and give its opinion on the proposed dissolution of the Portuguese Assembly. Rebelo de Sousa has been tipped to dissolve parliament, known in the country as the bomba atomique, or atomic bomb, during the previous scandal involving Galamba. But in the end, he decided to keep the government afloat, but increase scrutiny of the government. However, he conspicuously refused to rule out dissolution in the future, and the fact that the scandal shows no sign of ending anytime soon could push him into calling new elections. This entire debacle comes at possibly the worst possible time for Portugal, slap bang in the middle of the process for getting the 2024 budget passed through Parliament. It was only last week that the bill passed its first reading, with every opposition party voting against the budget. Were Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa to dissolve Parliament now, Portugal would enter 2024 without an agreed-upon budget. The entire situation is, in any case, not only the end of Costa's domestic political career, at least for now, but his international career too. As one of the longest-serving prime ministers of a staunchly pro-European nation, Costa was high up on the list of contenders for the job of European Council President when it goes up for grabs next year. A diplomat talking to Politico prior to Tuesday's developments said that Costa was a pair of safe hands, with the required experience but without ambitions for future positions. Costa, for better or for worse, oversaw a Portuguese economic miracle. After years of stagnant growth and declining living standards, Portugal finally managed to break free from the past and from the hysteresis of the European sovereign debt crisis. Portugal's economy now ranks among the best performing in Europe. Costa's safe pair of hands undoubtedly played a role in that miracle, a role recognised and rewarded by the Portuguese people with an absolute majority in 2023. Those safe pair of hands are, however, no more. That's unfortunately all we have time for on YouTube today, but if you enjoyed this video and want to support us in making more of this kind of content, then you should check out Nebula. That's the creator-built and creator-owned streaming service where you can watch all of our videos and podcasts across our channels, totally ad-free. Plus, we post some of our videos on there early, and there's a bunch of exclusive content already there waiting for you on the platform. Now, if that wasn't enticing enough, Nebula is also full of incredible content from other creators you know and love, like Johnny Harris, Real Life Law, and Legal Eagle, as well as lots of cool creators you haven't even discovered yet. And the best thing is that this can all be yours for the price of just $2.50 per month. So check it out by clicking the link in the description, and make sure you use our link so they know you came from us, which will help us produce more content in the future.